Welcome back to the Jersey Boys podcast. Mike and I are here solo this week. No third party. Mike, how's it going?
It's going well, Steve. This card, I got a lot of stuff to chat with you about in this card. The DK pricing is really it's going to make it challenging to get 6 wins if you want to take down a GPP, but you gotta take some risks here if you want to differentiate yourself from the field.
Yeah, definitely. This is UFC Fight Night 136. This is going to be our Draftkings breakdown. Mike, how did you do last week with the card? I know all three of us, even CG who was here last week, we were all on Till, but I don't think we were playing much Till because we thought it was going to be low scoring. So how'd you do overall?
Yeah, I had a positive ROI as far as the bets go, and Draftkings I was middle of the pack. Posted 387, I believe, in season long, which isn't going to cut it long term. I last year I finished seventh overall with, I believe, a 402 average through 43 events or so for the entire year. So I'm trying to keep it above the 420 number. Got a lot of work to be done the rest of the way, but the bets just keep hitting, and I'm hitting at 65% for the year, and just continuing to hit while the iron's hot. Yeah,
65% is a pretty good percentage. Now, we have a little group chat on Twitter and stuff like that, and I agree with you. I totally agree. I think this may be a stars and scrubs week. We can talk through it, but there's 12 fights in the card. 3 of these fights are supposed to go to decision. There's one pick'em, 8 are favored to finish. So, this is the kind of card where, you really got to pick those maybe 2 or 3 high-priced guys that actually do finish. Because if you pick a high-priced guy, even in cash, that doesn't finish, you could just be out of the money right there.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. It's a very challenging card. And I think what a lot of people are going to try to do is find an underdog who can survive all 3 rounds and keep an active pace, because a lot of these guys, the lower priced guys, I expect them to be sparked out pretty early, or just get stuck on bottom, and they're not going to put up points, similar to what happened to Esparza last week. I think she went the entire 3 rounds and didn't land a significant strike. And then you also had Darren Till, who for $8,100 basically did nothing.
Yeah, put up a goose egg.
Yeah, incredible. So this is a different card. Opportunities are out there, but we'll try and sift through them over the next hour and help some folks out.
Yeah, so let's get right into this. UFC Fight Night 136. This is Hunt versus Oleinik. Our first fight is Merab. I'm going to screw up this last name. Sun Tzu always makes fun of me for screwing up the last names, but Merab Devasili versus Terrian Ware. So Merab is 9.2K. Terrian Ware is 7K. I'll take this one. Of course, I'll throw a couple to you to go there, but pick up on where I left off here. I really like Merab in this spot. I was actually hoping. I was looking. I did some tape study last Friday. I did a lot of tape study last Friday. I just had some extra time. And I just really thought that maybe it would open at like minus 180, minus 200. And by the time I saw it and could have bet it on DraftKings, because I'm doing a lot of my betting on DraftKings now, it was just way out of hand. So he's 9.2K. I think this is a smash spot for him. I think the only thing he really needs to worry about is staying away from Ware's, I guess big right hand, if you want to call it that. He's 0-3 in the UFC, but it does look like he has some power in that right hand if he can get it off. Ware has never been knocked out. This is actually one of the 3 fights that's favored to go to decision. Pretty good, minus 215 to go to decision. I just think Merab's going to be too much for him. Nonstop energy. He pushes forward, multiple takedowns. He had a great show in his last fight against
Ricky Simone.
Ricky Simone. I was sitting cage side for that at UFC Atlantic City, and it was a controversial finish. Right? He probably won the fight. I mean, a lot of people thought he won the fight. I cage side thought he won the fight, and even his first fight, very easily he could have won that fight by decision. That was a close fight.
Yeah, that was against Frankie Saenz.
Yeah, so I mean, he could be 2-0, but he's 0-2. So he's in this spot against Terrion Ware, who's 0-3 in the UFC. He's fought two guys that I kind of like. Sean O'Malley, I love. Cody Stamann, he actually beat by this. He lost to by decision, and Duke and Wah, he actually lost to. He got outstruck in a lot of those fights. He's also lost to Luke Sanders in the past. He's also lost to Joe Soto in the past. Those are the names that I saw on his list that he's lost to. A lot of his fights go to decision, so I'm going to pick Merab by decision here. The 9.2K is tough. I think he can pay it off. I think it's going to go three rounds, but we're probably talking we're going to need to see 4 or 5 takedowns, which he's very capable of doing, in order to hit 10K here or hit 10 times here. So, Mike, what do you think about that? Did I leave anything out?
Well, no, you hit on a bunch of points. A few things. So Devashvili is from he's from Georgia, the country of Georgia, and he has a lot of folks in Russia who are going to be coming out for the fight. 27 years old. He does not look like he's 27 years old. Looks like he's much older than that.
And he trains out by you, right? He trains with Longo and Sarah out on Long Island.
Yep, out on Long Island. A few things that stood out to me. Devashvili went for 9,200. He's going to have to do a lot to make it worth that price. But the guy is a maniac when he's out there. He just spams takedown after takedown after takedown, and then he's not afraid to engage in the stand-up too. He'll throw the kitchen sink at his opponents. Where is a decent boxer for plus 375? If he stays standing, he has a chance in this fight. But as we've seen before against O'Malley and other opponents, Cody Stamann, etc., he can get taken down and just basically get worn out for 3 rounds. Although he hasn't really gone away. He's made it to the decision, to the scorecards a few separate times. And the guy has heart. I kind of feel bad for him in a way because he's had some really tough matchups back to back. So these guys are going to come out balls to the wall. They are hunting for that first UFC victory here, and so much is on the line. This is a fight I definitely want to target because there are so many fights out there where even if there's a discrepancy in skill set, sometimes a fighter is content staying at range and not engaging, where in this fight, both guys are going to come at each other. And I think that will lead to high Draftkings score. I'm just going to ask my kids to hush. You can continue with your chat.
Yeah, no doubt.
1 second.
No doubt.
Yep.
So I'll get right into this next fight while Mike takes care of the kids. We have Ramazan Ameev and we have Stefan Cyclic. I believe that's how you say his name. So Ramazan Ameev is 9.3K. Stefan is 6.9K. And I have a very simple breakdown for this fight. I just think Ameev is head and shoulders stronger, more talented. He's a cautious striker, in my opinion. But he will go for the takedown. I love once he gets into the clinch because he really is able to use his strength and kind of impose his will on his opponent. And my question with Stefan here, he's a southpaw from Serbia. I just don't think he's tough enough to beat Ramazan Ameev, if that makes sense. Ameev is just, he's from Russia. This is the first event in Russia. You're talking about a guy who beat Sam Alvey at 185. I mean, I have a very high opinion of Sam Alvey. This fight's going to be at 185. This is Stefan's UFC debut. He has a bunch of fights at lower weight classes. He's actually kind of coming up for this fight. So I think this is a smash spot for Ameev. It's supposed to go to decision, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But it's very similar to this first fight. I think he's going to need 4 or 5 takedowns, which he can get to pay off that 9.3K price tag. Very safe, very, very safe for cash. These first 2 fights are very safe for cash. I don't think there's a high possibility of a knockout. And again, I really think that these guys can impose their will with the clinch work and the takedown game. But I do think this is going to go 3 rounds. So, Mike, what do you think here?
Okay. Stefan Cyclic is coming in on a week notice. He's replacing an injured Claudio Silva. He's got submission victories via choke and also TKOs and knockouts up and down his docket. And when I watch his fights, he's fighting folks who are at a totally different level than Ameev has been facing. It's tough to gauge when someone's coming off of the regional scene, whether or not they're legit or not. The guy's in his early 20s, right? He's 26 years old.
26, yeah. Mike, let me ask you this.
Fighting at welterweight. Yeah.
Did you recognize any of the names? The only name I recognized that he fought was David Zawada, and Zawada knocked him out.
Yeah.
I don't know if you recognize any of the other names.
No, I didn't recognize any of the other names. And then you got Ameev, who came in to the UFC with a head of steam. He beat Sam Alvey and fought a conservative game plan to do that. And then he dropped down to welterweight and took on Alberto Mina, who's a tough out, and fought a very technical fight. Looked great on the feet. Was landing an overhand right at will, and he wasn't afraid to go into Mina's guard and test his ground game. Mina has a world-renowned jiu-jitsu game, and in this fight, you're right, it is favored to go to a decision. I see Ameev as a minus 485 favorite. I agree with you. It's one of the safer plays on the card, but if you're looking for a fight that has tremendous upside, this, to me, isn't the fight unless Cyclic comes in and isn't ready to go the distance. The line, Vegas thinks it is going to go the distance, so they know something. Maybe he's ready to take this fight and go all 3 rounds, but we'll see. That's why they make the fights. But my pick is Ameev. I mean, minus 485. I think that's a reasonable. Well, that's an unreasonable line, but he is a safe play.
This is another one of those fights that when I did my tape study on Friday and I was looking for the lines, I really hoped it would come out a little bit shorter than this, but it didn't come out. Up and down this card.
Just I was looking at it. You have 7. A couple of days ago, I tweeted this out. There were 7 fighters that were either minus 400 or higher, which is ridiculous. It makes it a real challenge to compose these lineups.
And that's why I said to you and CG earlier when I tweeted at you guys. I said, this is like stars and scrubs. You don't have an option because of the price differential. The other thing I wanted to bring up with Stefan, if you wanted to throw him in some GPPs, he does have a pretty good ground game. He does like to go for guillotines, grabs your neck, will take your back. So, I mean, there's a possibility for a sub here. I'm not calling for a sub. I'm just saying he's done it in the past if you watch him on film. The other thing, I don't know if you saw this fight. I think I tweeted it at you guys. Adriano Saverio Balbi, when he fought him, did you see his leg break in that fight?
Wild stuff, yeah.
If you want to see something very graphic, I don't know who's watching right now, but if you want to see something graphic, go watch Stefan Cyclic versus Adriano Saverio Balbi. It's in the 3rd round. The video that I watched, it basically slows it down. It's in slow motion, and the guy's leg just breaks. He kicks, takes another step, and then his leg just breaks. And that's actually one of his losses. He's 12-2, and that's one of his losses. So his other loss was to David Zawadi, which is the only guy on his record that I recognize. That's the only name I know.
Yeah. One other thing also about Cyclic, when I'm watching his highlight reel as well as the fights in their entirety, his opponents look like they're sitting ducks. They turn their back on him. The quality of opponent is just not there, so it's really tough to gauge how good these fighters are, and that's the danger when you're putting your hard-earned money on the line. Some of these unknowns, you have to take a risk, but it's tough, man. It makes for tough sledding.
David Zawadi is the guy. He knocked Stefan out. He's the guy who fought Danny Roberts a few weeks ago
Yep.
over in England, right?
Yep. Hot
And
chocolate.
that,
Yep.
and that was supposed to finish, and it actually went to this. It was a close decision. Roberts had to win that third round, I believe, to win that fight.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right, next fight is Mike had mentioned earlier, you got to find somebody that you like that's a little cheap, and I kind of like Adam Yandiev, I believe is his name.
Yeah.
He's 7.5K on DraftKings. Watching film on him, if you go to Tapology, he just looks like a killer. That picture, he looks tough. He's a judo player. He's a Russian. The issue is he hasn't fought in 3 years, and on film it looks like he gasses. So when he gasses, unfortunately, his opponents are kind of gassed also at the same time. But he loves to like crank your neck and try to just finish you with a submission. Very muscular, very strong. Will shoot a single leg takedown, some judo throws, multiple sub attempts, as I mentioned earlier. So he's a guy who has some skill, and he's just very, very tough and strong. My concern is if this goes into the second round, late second round, Jordan Johnson is the kind of guy, he's a grounder. He's going to make you go that far into a fight. And I just think that Johnson's going to be able to grind out a victory here. But I do like Yandiev at 7.5K. He has a great opportunity to stay in this fight. And again, he's 9-0 with 9 finishes, 6 subs and 3 knockouts. His last 4 fights have all been first round subs. And as far as I wrote down, he's never seen round 2. So again,
Yeah.
I watched a couple of these fights on film. He does gas, and again, he's only been in 1 round. I think Johnson can get him into round 2 and round 3 and grind this out. But if you look at Jordan Johnson's DK scores, I don't know if that's the kind of score that you want even in a win. But Mike, what do you think?
Yeah. A few things here. Jordan Johnson's coming in on a short notice replacement. About a month out, he's replacing Christoph Jocko, and he's also dropping a weight class. Both guys actually are. Yandiev is coming down from 205. They both are. Jordan Johnson's a big guy too, 6'2". Great wrestler out of Iowa, and All-American actually. Although he hasn't really shown his full potential in the UFC octagon, at least according to him. One thing I liked was hearing his post-fight comments, not with Rogan or anybody like that, but just after the fight. He was interviewed, and he was really upset with himself after both the Milstead performance and the Fortuna performance. So I don't know if he does have that untapped potential or not. I will say Yandiev, he hasn't been tested by USADA, over the past few years when he was competing, and he's been out for 3+ years. The guy is ridiculously jacked, and he's listed at 5'11". He reminds me of a build similar to Latifi. This fight. What?
Do you know why? Do you know why he hasn't fought in 3 years? Because I couldn't find that. I looked.
I spent a few days literally researching this and wasn't able to come up with a straight answer.
Yeah.
But he does have a significant following on that side of the planet. Had been fighting with in the M1 organization. He's a plus 225 underdog. I see a lot of folks gravitating towards Yandiev at his price. Jordan Johnson, on the other hand, for 8,700, I'd suspect people who roster him are going to expect him to score takedowns, especially in the latter rounds if it gets there. Also, he does have submissions that we haven't seen in the UFC, but he's comes out of the MMA lab. And what I want to know, though, is what possessed Jordan Johnson to take this fight? To travel from Arizona all the way to Russia on a month notice and drop a weight class. It leads me to believe he had been planning to drop a weight class. So he couldn't have been walking around at like 220, 225 and then started, the cut to 185. Well, maybe he was. I mean, that's something that we really have to find out. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the fights that gets scratched during weigh-ins, to be honest. This fight, to me, you have both guys dropping. And I believe the last time Yandiev fought at 185 was back in 2014. And he's 30 years old now. So
I believe he was 2 pounds over in that fight.
So I
he weighed in
suspect
187,
somebody's going to miss weight here, or they're going to scratch this fight. That's a lot to ask for a guy to fly to Russia and then drop a weight class.
Yeah, you know what? I think this is something that maybe this week in interviews, if we see any interviews with Jordan Johnson, again, I don't know what American or Canadian or English for that matter journalists are going over to Russia to take care of this. But I definitely would like to hear Jordan Johnson, speak on why he's doing that. Even a few months ago, if you remember, a guy like Justin Ledet, he basically became a vegan,
right,
and dropped all that weight. So maybe Jordan Johnson has some story like that. And you brought up that he is a wrestler and he has that wrestling background. Against Adam Milstead, he only had 2 of 12 takedowns. So it's not even like he's that successful with his wrestling. And I feel like his striking is slow, which is why I kind of like Yandiev. I think he can catch him.
Yes.
We'll see.
He's got power. He's got power. He's got submissions and 3 knockouts, 6 submissions. And it's the other thing, we haven't mentioned this yet, but I suspect that the judging on this card is going to be very, very suspect.
Mike, I was going to bring that up to you. What do you think about the judging? I meant to write it down and ask you. I just don't know. Do you think they bring judges in? Is there like M1 is out there, right? Do they just use the judges that they use for M1? How does that work?
I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest, because they don't have a Nevada State Athletic Commission out there, and I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest. I remember, was it Macau? They had an issue with the judging, and they, I believe, removed a judge at one point during the card. I gotta look back at what happened there. But to be honest, I think you're taking a risk if you're fading the Russian fighters during this card.
I totally agree, 100%. If you know anything about Russia, what they've done recently. Just go to the movie. Anyone who listens to the Joe Rogan podcast, he talks about it all the time. But the movie Icarus, highly recommend the movie Icarus. But what they did, the whole doping thing that they did during the Olympics, I mean, I wouldn't put anything past them at this point. Between these guys being jacked up, as you kind of mentioned earlier with him, I mean, he's huge. He's absolutely. I mean, he's got muscles on top of muscles, and then on top of it, who knows what's going on with these judges? So I totally agree.
One thing that stood out to me, I know it's just one fight, but when Maldonado went over to fight Fedor a few years ago and brutalized Fedor, and it looked like he was going to come away with the win, and then the incoming decision had it for Fedor. That blew my mind. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, this first card in Russia, right? So.
Yeah, and again,
keep your guard
I
up,
think there's going to be many more.
There's
a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are looking forward to this card. When you talk about the number of fighters from Dagestan, and again, it brings us into our next fight, Magomed Ankalaev versus Marcin Prachnio. There we go. You're better off with these names than I am. Sun Tzu's right. I butcher these things. So
fun.
Ankalaev is 9.1K, and again, he's famous for beating up Paul Craig for 3, I guess we'll call it 2 rounds and 4 minutes and 50 seconds. And Paul Craig's able to what did he get him in the guillotine? He slipped that guillotine on him real late.
Yeah.
For that finish. I believe Ankalaev was a -700 favorite. I remember watching the fight. I remember everybody was on him in Draftkings. I think it was like 9.4, 9.5K. So that was very disappointing to see that happen. And then you got a guy in Prachnio, now that you're saying it correctly. He fought Sam Alvey. He was
came in as the favorite, right?
He was a -250 favorite versus Sam Alvey, and he looked terrible. Marching forward, Sam Alvey just kind of, and again, he had the wrong approach to Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey, that's what he wants to do. He wants to counterpunch you with a heavy left hand or a heavy right hand. And Pratchnil just closed the distance and got right into Sam Alvey's wheelhouse. Knocked him down once, and then he basically just marched forward, and Sam Alvey put him out with a right hand. It just showed really bad fight IQ. So you got two guys here that basically have shown really, really poor fight IQ. Now, with that being said, this is favored to finish, and in a GPP, I kind of wouldn't mind the play on Pratchnil. I'm not saying he's going to win, but I think if you're gonna punt with anybody, I mean, Ankalaev has also shown that he's not the smartest guy out there with the decisions that he's making. Pratchnil is a big, strong kid. He's Polish. The other issue is Ankalaev is Russian, but I don't think this is going to hit the scorecard. So. Those are one of the things that I would be concerned with. Ankalaev is also a southpaw. Sam Alvey, is very similar. So you never know. I don't have a good feel for this fight because I don't like the fight IQ. So Mike, what do you think?
No, I agree in a sense that Ankalaev he was obviously within a second from winning the fight and tapped out and that was total shock to everyone who
it seems like a quick tap too. I don't know.
Wagers on him. Yeah, I don't. And everyone, mentions that they how could you not hear the clacker? Just the awareness was a real issue. But he started to tear through Paul Craig, and there were a few times I thought he could have finished the fight, but he didn't. And what surprised me with Ankalaev, he doesn't have submission victories. He's got some knockouts and decisions, and I've watched his fights prior to coming to the UFC. I think you're right in the sense that he's taking a chance against a well-known striker with a karate background who has 10 knockouts out of his 13 wins. He did come in with a head of steam against Sam Alvey and looked like he just was overconfident in my eyes. I mean, he was coming at Alvey with his hands down, and he didn't respect Alvey's power. I don't know how that's possible. It made me wonder, what were his coaches telling him in the lead up to this fight. But
now, Mike, with that being said, Sam Alvey is the kind of guy that could be overlooked. You look at Sam Alvey, you see the way he smiles around in the cage and everything.
Yeah, he's pudgy.
He's got the dad bod kind of, he's easy to overlook. So I can see that happening,
Smiling at you. Yeah.
He's a killer.
I agree. And I'll be honest, I think you've got better options on the table than Ankalaev. I think there are other options out there. And for the price that you're going to pay for him, man, 9,100. I think you can do better, but we'll see.
Especially with the guys that we've seen knock Paul Craig out. I was kind of surprised if he's that highly rated that he wasn't able to do it, and he didn't really, as you said, he didn't really pursue it. He had some opportunities, he didn't really pursue it.
Yeah, so Ankalaev was another minus 420 favorite out there. Now he's up to minus 440. I'm looking at the lines. Between 440 and 499.
I got to tell you, my sponsor, I just got my credentials for UFC 229. So I am going to Vegas officially, and Eat Clean Bro is going to be my sponsor. So they sent me a case of H2 Bro water. So I got to pay for the show and mention my sponsor. I'm also drinking wine tonight, but that's all right. Excellent. So we get into this next fight. I'm interested to hear your take on this next fight. So I'll throw it to you quick. But Marabek Taisimov is 8.9K and Des Green is 7.3K. Des Green is somebody that I'm looking for to maybe target in cash because of his price. So if you want to get a couple low price guys, I think that this could go to decision because Des Green, he fights very cautiously. And again, he kind of gets into the pocket, strikes, and gets himself out of the pocket. And I also think that because of Des Green's wrestling background, I think he's going to be able to basically offset what Taisimov can do on the mat if he goes for his normal takedowns. Now, in terms of power, Taisimov definitely has more power. is he going to be able to land that punch? So, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah. Wow. Great fight. It's amazing that this fight is actually taking place considering Desmond Greed's current legal situation. And
car accident, 3 or 4 car accident, right?
Yeah, and then also Taisimov, he has some visa issues himself and multiple fight cancellations if you look through his track record. Taisimov, he can do everything, man. He's got great wrestling, great cardio. He's got tremendous power. When you look up and down his resume, though, besides Prazeres, you don't see many great fighters on his resume. And at 26-5, I'd suspect he's worthy of better opponents on his resume. Des Green, I really enjoyed watching his win over Josh Emmett. I thought he turned the corner after that fight. Then he went on to fight, I believe, Kabalov and Michel Prazeres.
Yeah, he lost to Prazeres also. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he recently beat Gleison Tibau, right?
Tibau, yep.
Yeah. So I thought he had a smart game plan for that fight. Now, where his head's at and heading over to Russia. Before I say that, I like Des Green's hands. He soundly outstruck Josh Emmett, and he does have great takedown defense. I do see him hanging with Taisimov in this fight better than most other people expect. And you've got Taisimov, who was at minus 420 earlier today, and I believe it's continuing to rise. Man, and look at his price tag also.
I tell you what, if he was minus 420, I wish
8,900 is actually pretty cheap for.
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah, for minus 400. So now he's minus 440. I could see this. It depends. Des Green could try and keep distance and fend off takedowns and extend this fight, similar to. I mean, look what he did with Prazeres. The guy was outweighed him by like 20, 25 pounds. And
Prazeres came in
and he survived.
4 or 5 pounds overweight in that fight, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that was a huge weight difference. And I believe that was in Brazil as well. So that might have been on the Belém card. Yeah, so I agree. Des Green, I think is. I mean, you can't expect him to win at plus 335. That's a long shot, but I do expect him to hang in there. And when you're looking for the lower tiered fighters, I realize he is 7,300, but I think he's one of the safer. It's crazy for me to even say this, but I think he's one of the safer plays.
Yeah,
at 7,300.
And we're 5 fights in, Mike, and there's really no disagreements here. So
yeah, sorry about that. And this is one of the reasons I like doing this pod with you guys, is because I'm not afraid to, if I have a difference of opinion, I will go that way and we'll hash it out. So I respect.
Yeah, and last week we had a couple differences. I think we had 2 or 3 differences, but this week we're right on the money here. So let's get into this.
Let's see. Got a few more fights to go.
Ruston Kabalov and Cajun Johnson. So is this Cajun Johnson's last fight in the UFC? 6.7K. Kabalov is 9.5K. I think Kabalov is going to have a big strength advantage. I think the deal with Cajun Johnson is he's going to do what he normally does. He tries to dance around the cage, use his speed, quickness to slow the fight down. Kind of strike and move, get in the pocket, get out of the pocket. I'm kind of surprised every time I look at Cajun Johnson's record. I mean, he was 4-1 going into that last fight, where I believe was he submitted? Was he submitted early? I think
by
he was submitted,
Makhachev, right?
By Makhachev, yeah. But he uses his length. He's long. He uses his length to point fight. Again, I don't think he's going to be able to point fight here, right? But I do think that if you want to play him in cash at 6.7K and take a punt on him if you're doing stars and stripes, for the most part, I think that he's going to be able to last a little bit. But Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, well, we saw in the last fight that things started to get hairy if you rostered Makachev against Cajun Johnson, because he was literally trying to evade and not get into any exchanges at all. And the rounds time was just being milked away, and you're sitting there thinking, oh man, how is this guy going to even put up? How is he going to reach his potential from a DraftKings perspective? And I think he's going to do the same thing in this fight. He does it in most of his fights, where he makes his opponent come at him and then throws some wild shit at him. He's not afraid to try some diverse striking attacks. He'll probably end up getting stuck on bottom like other fighters have. I've been impressed with Kabalov for a long time. He comes with he's part of the huge Dagestani crew with Khabib and similar style fighter, but Kabalov also he has some hands too. When Kabalov fought Chris Wade, I was really impressed with the way he was able to dominate him in the wrestling department. He fought Leandro Silva, Jason Sago, Des Green. The Des Green fight I was impressed with Kabalov's performance there. It just depends on if Kabalov is. I don't see him. I think you have much better options. I think Yan, if you can head up to 9,600, I think he'll be a better option. But 9,500 for Kabalov, I think, unless Johnson. Here's the other thing: pay attention to those interviews. James Lynch and others do some great. John Morgan, they do some great pre-fight interviews, and usually you can get a feel if somebody is looking for a way out, and they don't want to be there. You can feel it. So just keep your ears open and pay attention to those interviews. Yeah, but I mean, Kabalov seems like a safer play at minus 650, but I don't like his price.
Well, I just want to bring it up. If you do believe in MMA math, Cajun Johnson beat Adriano Martins. Adriano Martins actually beat Kabalov and Makachev. So if you believe in MMA math, then Johnson should win this fight. Again, guys, I that's sarcasm because I do not believe in that. But Mike, next fight we have Peter Yan and Jin Soo Sun. I think this is a smash spot for Peter Yan based on everything that I've seen, his price, inside the distant prop, and everything else. But I don't have enough video on Son at 6.6K to really be confident in giving anything. So what did you find on Jin Soo Sun?
Yeah, the limited footage, unless you have a way of streaming the Deep organization. Very aggressive fighter, Jin Soo Sun, who isn't afraid to march down his opponents and really take big risks. And I think you'll have to take big risks against Peter Yan, who's very well-rounded. The way Yan looked versus Ishihara really, really impressed me. The composure, the accuracy of his strikes. The guy at 25 years of age, the sky's the limit. And I honestly believe in a couple of fights. I mean, this is a showcase fight for him. But he's got the one loss out of his way. But very high price tag. This fight to not go the distance is at a minus 290 right now. But if you want to play it safe and stack this fight, I could see Soo Sun hanging in there for at least a little bit. Man, there are a few options out there, but yes, I could see this as being a squash match. But when we're dealing with 135 pounders, I know they're not the smallest guys, but Peter Yan is a very active fighter, and so is Jin Soo Sun from the footage, the limited footage that I've been able to watch. So you want somebody who's going to be able to hang in there for a little while. Minus 700 though, Peter Yan seems like he's the highest odds favorite on the entire card. But at that low weight class, well, We'll see. And you know, man, it would be the biggest upset on the card if Jin Susan came through. I don't see it happening.
Does he have a path to victory though, Mike?
Besides just some wild spinning shit, no. That's my take on it.
Okay.
I very limited footage, just like you were saying.
Yeah, that's why I really don't have anything on him. So I was hoping I messaged you guys earlier in the week hoping to get something, but I really didn't
caught
have
a couple of his fights, but the guy, you know, he's a protege of the Korean Zombie, right? And
yes,
we know
he's actually in his camp. I believe he opened the gym.
So we know Korean Zombie. We know his style. Not saying that. And here's another thing: a lot of people get caught up with folks training with other fighters. That doesn't mean that they're gonna be the same caliber of fighter. We can't expect this kid to come out and be a Korean Zombie. I remember who was the fighter who came out and was in Team Alliance. He trained with Dom Cruz a few cards ago. And
I know who you're talking about. I do know.
The hype was that he trained with Dom Cruz, but
he had a couple fights in the Contender Series also. Yeah, I do remember.
Matt Sales.
That's his name. Yep, Matt Sales.
Yeah, but this just goes to show you, that just because you train with somebody doesn't mean you are them. Okay.
Yeah, let's get into this next fight, and I'm actually surprised that this line is so close. To be honest with you, it's CB Dalloway at 7.8K and Khalid. I'm gonna screw up this name.
Murtazaliev.
Murtazaliev. So he's 8.4K. I really like Khalid Murtazaliev in this fight. CB Dalloway, he seems very eager to strike, and I think that plays right into Khalid's hands. His last fight was at 205. He's 13-2. Dalloway, since the layoff, is 2-0. And again, since the layoff because he had a little bit of layoff.
2-0.
Yeah, he dropped a couple fights before that. Technically, he is 2-0.
Yeah.
Anybody who watches tape and goes through the tape, he's 2-0 on the scorecards. But he beat Ed Herman at 205. He fought Hector Lombard. Hector Lombard hit him with a two-piece. That was his last fight, right? And
right. And he was carried out on a stretcher.
He was carried out on a stretcher. Lombard hit him with a two-piece that was right after the bell that knocked him out. And they didn't end the fight right away. They kind of talked to him a little bit, and he had no idea what the hell was going on. I mean, he had a concussion. He was out of it. It was after the bell. And again, you're talking about a guy who's 35 years old coming off a knockout 6 months ago. So he took 6 months to come back into the cage. He was knocked out. He was concussed. And he's 35 years old. So I kind of like Khalid here at 8.4K. I think it's a very fair price for GPPs. Khalid doesn't really seem to have any interest in going to the ground. One of his opponents actually gave his back, and he didn't even go for a rear naked choke or anything. He didn't go for an attempt. He just wants to punch you to oblivion. I think he could do it here. I mean, he very easily could lose this fight, but I think he could use it here. He does use his wrestling. He tries to get into side control, multiple takedowns, uses his body lock. He's strong. And again, both of these guys have fought at 205. They're fighting this fight at 185. So, you had mentioned it before. Maybe the weight cut could be an issue here. I mean, you could have a canceled fight here. But right now, I kind of like Khalid as my preferred play. Yeah,
this is the third short notice opponent that I'm mentioning on this card so far. So Murtazaliev, I have no idea how old this guy is. I know he's apparently 17-4. No, that's not his record. I apologize.
I wrote down 13-2. I don't know.
Yeah, 13-2. Right. So there's so many question marks here. I've watched his fights. He looks good on tape. He had some guy in the crucifix.
Yes.
These are all regional opponents that I've been watching. And he's landing takedowns. He's got 12 knockouts. You're right. He's coming down from light heavyweight. And then you have Dalloway on the other hand, who, in my opinion, This is another thing, that we have to discuss about, camps that folks are in and who they're sparring with. And CB Dalloway, for the longest time, he's an ASU Sun Devil alumni, and he spent a lot of time with Ryan Bader. And Ryan Bader throws some serious hands. And I have a feeling that CB Dalloway has been on the receiving end of a lot of punishment in the training room through the years. And he just doesn't. He's the same guy who was injured in the elevator a few cards ago, and he has losses to Nate Marquardt. That loss to Machida back in 2014 was something that the way he crumpled to the body kick. This. For $8,400, Khalid, I think you're getting a pretty good deal on this guy, to be honest. Dalloway, what is his path to victory? He's slowing down in the stand-up. He is a great wrestler. At least he has the credentials.
But Khalid has shown that he is interested in the takedown. He'll wrestle too. Yeah.
Yep. And it also depends. Now, Khalid was fighting for the promotion Fight Nights Global. What caliber of opponents are we talking about here, too? This is up and down this card. I think people just need to really have a perspective that Khalid isn't a world beater, but where can we identify a skill discrepancy? And that's really what it comes down to. And I see a few areas. And I see the lines widening a little bit. So for $8,400, I think you're getting a pretty good deal.
Where is, I didn't write it down, Mike. Where is Khalid from?
I want to say he's a local guy. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say he's a local guy.
Yeah, I'm not very impressed with Dalloway at 35 years old. Lombard was 40 years old when he fought him, I believe. Knocked him out. Obviously, it was after the bell. He got a win for it, but take it for what it's worth. I think the guy's coming at 35 years old, coming off a knockout where he really had no idea where the hell he was 6 months later. I think that's it's something that's cause for concern. This next fight.
Here's one other thing before you get to that. I think a lot of people are going to be ending up making a choice between if they're looking at stars and scrubs. I think they're settling on taking a loss. But if you are trying to get six wins, I see people between Dalloway and Arlovsky. I see a lot of people trying to fluctuate between those two fighters, but I don't know what kind of effort you're going to get out of Dalloway. He seems to quit when the going gets rough, and I didn't like when he was carried out on that stretcher. I can't speak for a fighter who's had a concussion and was stretchered out, but his whole demeanor, the way he reacted when the referee was talking to him, it just didn't seem like he wanted to even be there.
I don't even think he was there. Like mentally, he just wasn't there. I mean, he was concussed.
Yeah. Well, then he's got a good excuse.
Yeah. So ninth fight of this card, we got 4 more to go. Thiago Alves and Alexei Chunkenkov. Am I saying that wrong again? 9K. I'm honestly surprised that he's only 9K. I really thought that he would be one of the higher priced guys. Alves was kind of picked apart by Curtis Millender. He's 34 years old, and he's got plenty of losses. I mean, he lost to Jim Miller, he lost to Millender. He's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. He fights at a good camp, American Top Team. Yeah. But I mean, Millender, he's more or less a counter striker, but he played the outside against Millender. Millender kind of picked him apart, just stood in the middle of the cage, waited for him to try to close distance, outstruck him. I think this is a smash spot. At 9K, I think you're getting a steal here, and I do see a finish. So that's more or less what he's the M1 champ, right? So he fights locally also, Mike?
Yeah, he's fighting out of M1, the Wolverine, minus 475 favorite. What's amazing to me, both of these guys are 34 years old, yet one's at the end of their career, one looks like they're just hitting their stride. Um, Kunchenko, he went pro in 2013, according to Tapology, and to rack up an 18-0 record, that's pretty darn good, no matter what organization you're in. I, the last time I saw Thiago Alves was when Dustin Poirier beat Eddie Alvarez, and I saw him jumping around in the corner, and I kind of thought, man, I wonder what is going through his mind right now. What could he have done to be a legitimate player at welterweight? And in my eyes, his run ended a number of years ago. Back, he was losing to Jordan Mean a long time ago. He took an L to Jim Miller. He did come back and have a little bit of a one fight career resurgence when he beat Patrick Cote in 2017. But Patrick Cote was the guy who left his gloves in the octagon after that fight.
Yeah, I
And
didn't even mention it, to be honest with you, because I really wasn't impressed.
no, yeah, and man, and then the way he came out against Millender, you could see that his heart was in it, because he never really gave up on himself, even though he was getting battered and beaten. He was continuing to fight, but his body and just his lack of head movement was a real problem. Those ferocious leg kicks, he doesn't have the energy to throw those on a consistent basis throughout the fight like he used to. Oh my God. I remember he was fighting who fought who recently won a bare knuckle boxing fight.
You know what? I haven't even watched those.
Oh my gosh,
to be honest with you.
170. I was at the fight anyway. But I've seen Thiago Alves fight when he was on the sauce, and probably on the sauce, and completely jacked out of his mind. And that ship has sailed. USADA's a real thing. And Kunchenko, I think he's one of the safest plays on the card. I honestly think that people don't recognize the name Kunchenko, and they see Thiago Alves, and people are gonna, even though they know he's shot, they'll probably gravitate towards him.
They gotta watch some film, because that's just a big mistake.
Yeah, I mean, but if you pull up Thiago Alves highlights, right? Tell me if you watch that, you wouldn't be salivating to play the guy, in Draftkings. I mean, if you, I know a lot of people do their homework, right? But Kunchenko is not a household name to the casual fan. Granted, we're doing some homework here, and there is significant money on the line, so we do want to win. But the odds of this not going the distance are minus 210, so it is expected to finish. My concern, though, is when Alves comes out, he doesn't want to. He's not going to want to get into a firefight. What he's going to try to pick Kunchenko apart, or at least that's what he thinks he's going to try to do, right? How do you think he's going to approach this fight, Alves?
I mean, if you look at how he fought Melender, he didn't have a clue in hell how to fight. You know what I mean? You look at
Melender has such freakish length too, which made it really awkward.
But that's the point. He knew going into the fight that he had freakish length. Mm-hmm. So what was he going to try to do? He didn't try to take him down. He had no success with that. So what do I expect him to do? I really don't know. I think he's kind of unsure of himself, and I think he took so much punishment against Melender that he's trying to be perfect. Like, he feels like he needs to be perfect in this fight.
Well,
I just don't know
ATT's
if he's
got a
capable of it.
yeah, and ATT. I mean, I'm sure they coached him up. They have a game plan, but here's what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to try to evade, and then try to implement some sort of kicking game, and it's just not going to be effective. And Kuchenko's going to over time just. I mean, Kuchenko's he's a legitimate 18-0, and he has multiple paths to victory. He could get a submission. He could get a knockout. He's got great hands. He's got great wrestling. He's got a great gas tank. This guy can do it all. Just a shame that he's not on our screen locally. And I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but there are so many fighters on the UFC roster, especially, they created a women's 145 division, right? I wonder what's going on. There are so many roster spots. Why don't they pay Kuchenko? Now they are, but he should have been on the UFC roster a while ago. I know he's been under contract with other organizations, but
Right.
go out and get the best fighters. That's what we should be seeing.
And again, you don't know what the deal is with these guys with visa issues and all this other stuff. I mean, you have no idea. It is Russia. You could say there could be a little corruption going on. You just don't know. You really have no idea what's going on.
Right.
But we got 3 fights left. This fight is very, very close. This next one coming up, Andrei Arlovsky, again locally from Belarus, but Shamil Abdurakhimov.
You nailed it.
Is from Dagestan, Russia. So he's another Dagestani. He's probably going to have, I would say, 10 to 15 pounds on Arlovsky in this fight. Arlovsky usually doesn't weigh in at the heavyweight limit at 265. He's usually in the 245 range. Maybe he'll be 250 for this. So there could be a weight discrepancy in this fight. Abdurakhimov is very accurate. I went back and watched the Chase Sherman fight, watched a couple other fights. He's fought some decent competition. He beat, Anthony Hamilton, Walt Harris, lost to Derek Lewis. And again, Derek Lewis fight, he tried to evade him, but, eventually Derek Lewis got him. And that was actually a main event. 4th round, was able to get him down with the ground and pound. But again, he was trying to really evade him for most of those first 3 rounds. I just think that his left hook is accurate. He has an overhand right. He's going to look to punch. He's an accurate power puncher. I didn't see not much success on the ground. But again, I think these guys are going to try to outstrike each other. And Arlovsky's kind of had a little resurgence recently. He lost 5 in a row. He came back to beat Albini and Struve. And then he just lost to Tuivasa. And Tuivasa was a guy, I believe at that point, he was like 6-0 or 7-0 with all first-round knockouts. When Arlovsky took him the distance, I think it was 1-1 going into that 3rd round. On my scorecard, at least. I don't know what the official judges had it at. But he's 39 years old. Abdurakhimov is 37 years old. Kind of the same weight, kind of the same height, reach. Well, not the same weight. Abdurakhimov should have him by 10 or 15 pounds. But I think this is a close fight. I mean, and it's priced accordingly. It's tough to pick here. I kind of like Arlovsky because of the experience, but I think that this could go either way. What do you think, Mike?
Okay. Yeah, this is Arlovsky's 3rd fight of 2018. He's been a pretty busy guy. Fought Tai Tuivasa, Stefan Struve, and Junior Albini. I thought he was going to lose 2 out of 3 of those fights. He ended up winning 2 out of 3, right? Really, when it comes down to it, you have 2 guys, similar weight class. Probably you're going to have Arlovsky on his bicycle, landing strikes, moving. He's a much better athlete than Shamil. Shamil doesn't throw for volume. Arlovsky does, but Arlovsky also. No one expected him to come out and take Stefan Struve down as many times as he did. I don't think he's going to try to do something like that here. I think he's going to try to strike at distance and play it safe and come out with a decision victory. And I think he could do that. At plus 105, I think Arlovsky might be a good play. this is coming from a guy who I was in the building when I saw Arlovsky get brutally knocked out by Sergey Kharitonov a number of years ago, and he's been knocked out so many different times. But I know Shamil put Chase Sherman's lights out, but recently a lot of fighters have been able to do that. And
I mean, Chase Sherman's a punching bag.
yeah, he is, and the punch that hit him, I believe, was behind the ear. So I like Arlovsky's price. Man, I'm looking at Shamil's price. Man, they are closely lined. This should be 8,300. It only takes one shot. I know people are saying that Arlovsky's chin is not shot and that he's been, Tybura, he's taken some punishment from a bunch of guys and sustained it. But, man, it only takes one shot, so you are taking a risk with Arlovsky. He could get clipped in the first round and the fight could end. Not likely, but I like Arlovsky in this spot as well, to be honest.
Mike, I think we're 10 for 10, man.
Wow, that's a first.
We're just agreeing on we're agreeing on everything. So I'll be
2 more to go.
Yeah, 2 more to go, and this is my favorite fight on the card. Coming up, fight number 11. It's going to be at 205 pounds. It's Nikita Krylov and Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz. I went back. I remember the Jimmy Manuel fight when Jan, he actually lost him the first time, came back and beat him the second time. And I think that's why Jan at this point is like, I believe in the light heavyweight division. I think he's like 3rd, 4th, or 5th ranked. He's pretty highly ranked right now after that win. And again, he was able to catch Jimmy early in the fight in the first round with a punch that knocked him down. And I don't think Jimmy ever really was comfortable the rest of that fight. So Jan
was taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, and Jan got a big win there. He's got 3 straight wins. But other than the Jimmy win, and that was by decision,
he came in against Cannonier and was an underdog in that fight and came through as well.
But how good do you think Cannonier is? Is Cannonier better than Krylov?
Cannonier was destroyed by one of the up and coming fighters, Dom Reyes, who's
fighting
he's UFC fighting on 229.
229.
He's fighting on
229. Yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good one.
I'm actually excited about that one. I was looking at that one today. I kind of just think Krylov is better. I think Krylov is very, very good. He was in the UFC. I believe he's 26 years old now, right? He was in the UFC from ages 21 to 24 and was 6-3 in the UFC at that age. I looked up. Mm-hmm. I looked up the story. Let me just finish the story that I thought, and then you could add to it, because I'm not sure if I know the whole story.
Go for it.
But I'm getting this all within the last few days. But he had a son, I believe, who was a year old. He wanted to go back to Russia. So after that fight, I believe it was against Serkinov, he lost to Serkinov. Krylov was actually ranked 8th at 24 years old. So if you're talking about a kid who's 24 years old, was ranked 8th, held his own against Serkinov until the end of that fight. Serkinov caught him with 2 left hands that dropped him and was able to get him into a guillotine. He's now 26. The improvements that he's made from 24 years old to 26, staying locally over in that part of the world. He's from Ukraine. Jan is from Poland. I think this is a great spot for Krylov, and I love his price at 8.2K. But again, I think he wanted to be home. He wanted to be back in the Ukraine. I believe it was a young son. It may have been a daughter, but I know he had a young child that he wanted to go home to. And he didn't want to spend all that time traveling and going over to the United States. So in this case, he doesn't need to do that. I think I'm going to say he's probably made big improvements. And I think the career highlight for Jan was beating Jimmy Manuel by decision. That's my take on it. But Mike, what do you think? Okay.
Jan Blachowicz was a sizable underdog against Devin Clark. Then an underdog against Jared Cannonier. then an underdog against Jimmy Manoa, and he won all those fights. He's got comes from has a background in kickboxing, and he's going to come in with a better stand up. I have no doubt about that. But also his takedown defense. That's what's been a big difference with him in his last few fights. He's been able to fend off the takedown. This is a guy who lost to Patrick Cummins, and I believe he went back to the drawing board after that fight. And this is another example of fighters evolving between fights. So Krylov, he's coming off of a win against another fighter I mentioned earlier in the night, Fabio Maldonado, who's now a washed up veteran, but he's had 4 wins since being released from the UFC. Krylov is $8,200. I remember his fight against Serkinov. There were a lot of grappling exchanges, transitions. They were on the ground. They were standing up. And actually, Serkinov was getting the better of Krylov in the later exchanges, and then ended up landing a submission on him. I realize there's been growth that has been taking place between then and now, and I think this is going to be a close fight. Blachowicz, yes, he's 35 years old, but this is a guy who he totally understands where he's at in his career. Krylov is willing to take big risks. I don't think he's ever gone to a decision. Am I correct?
That I'm not sure. I know he's 25-5 and 6-3 in the UFC. That's what I wrote down, but I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's man, he is he's a wild fighter. So I suspect on home turf he's going to try to take some chances here. I actually do, as far as an ownership perspective, Blachowicz is 8,000. I think people are going to gravitate towards him because he's a little bit cheaper, and also it's a very closely lined fight. But I too, I remember betting on Krylov to win or to beat Ed Herman and a few other fighters throughout his career, and I really think that he's not John Jones, right? You can't expect someone who's in their early 20s to just come in and dominate a division like the 205 division. But I'm glad that they got him back. I actually do like Krylov a little bit better for a few different reasons in this fight. The home field advantage, the diversity in his. I think that his ground game has gotten a lot better since he left the UFC, and I think it's going to be a great fight. I think from a DraftKings perspective, there are going to be a lot of points scored in here. Blachowicz likes to throw strikes, and Krylov as well. And these folks are going to be. Although Blachowicz hasn't, I think he's only been finished once or twice in his whole career. I think this is a case where he may be finished.
And again, at 8.2K, you don't even need to finish.
Are we agreeing again?
Yeah, I think it's 11 for 11. But even at 8.2K, Mike, I mean, I think you would agree. He doesn't need to finish to be able to pay off that price. And on top of it, if you go back and watch the Serkinov fight, they had a visual on screen that basically said Krylov was like the number 2. I think he had the second highest striking rate in the division at that time when he was 24 years old.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So, we're 11 for 11 here. I'm going to have to get a new co-host.
Yeah, I apologize.
This is way too much in agreement. So, you know what? I'm going to throw the last fight to you. I'm not even going to tell you. I don't know where your head's at right now. Okay. But the main event here is Mark Hunt and Alexei Oleinik. 8.6K for Hunt, 7.6K for Oleinik. Go ahead, take it away.
Yeah.
Heavyweight fight here. Thank
you, sir. Before we get into that, I'll also mention that, yes, Krylov has never gone to a decision. This fight, a lot of people expect Mark Hunt to not be throwing with volume. He is 44 years old. Oleinik is 41 years old. Both of these guys have a tremendous amount of fights in their career. Although Mark Hunt, you look at his record, 13-12. He was a legitimate kickboxer prior to this.
And once he came to the UFC, for the most part, I mean, he's fought every name in the division.
Oh my God, he just walked right in and fought Vanderlei Silva on short notice at an open weight. That was, he's fought the who. Long story short, though, Alexei Oleinik, you look down his resume. I mean, it takes you a while because the guy has so many fights, but he fought Mirko Krokop, who was not under USADA, and he beat him. He did that Ezekiel choke. It's amazing what he's been able to do, and I realized that that's a real threat in this fight. That he doesn't need much to land that. And Mark Hunt, at 44 years of age, he's going to have all of his wits in this fight. Travis Brown was kicking the shit out of Alexei Oleinik. Curtis Blades was destroying Oleinik. He plods forward and is there to be struck. And bottom line, I know exactly what Mark Hunt brings to the table. Mark Hunt never gave up when he was fighting against Curtis Blades. He really, he landed early and kept getting back up. But once Oleinik has Hunt on the ground, it's game over if that happens, in my eyes. So I think he just needs 1 second to lock something up, and he'll be done. But every fight starts on the feet, and this is a case where I think that Mark Hunt is going to be the faster fighter, the more precise striker when it comes down to it, and he does have knockout power. My only concern from a Draftkings perspective at 8,600, right?
Hunt's 8.6K.
8,600 is that he may it may be a one kill shot, and it's done. But we've seen Oleinik take some punishment in the past. Curtis Blades laid it on him for a while, and I believe that was a ref stoppage in that fight due to
I believe
injury.
Second round, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I see Hunt. I see Hunt getting the victory here, but for 7,600, it's a closely lined fight, and if you're playing GPPs, Oleinik may be the way to go. But my lean is Hunt. What do you think, Steve?
No, I think it
Are
all
we
goes
making
back
it 12
to,
for 12?
You know what it is? I don't even have a pick for this fight.
Okay.
Because I feel like there's such a disparity between, if it stays in the feet, I think Hunt gets a knockout. If Oleinik can get him down, based on what Curtis Blades did to Hunt, and Hunt couldn't really get back. I don't think Hunt gets back up. Once he goes down, I don't think he gets back up. Yeah. So how does Oleinik get him down? And that's really what I was going to pose to you. Does Oleinik get him down from a body lock? Does he go for a single leg? Does he go for a double leg?
Here's the thing.
How does he do it?
It's wild. You remember the Albini fight?
Right.
Albini thought
he didn't even take him down, right? He just basically submitted him from the standing position.
No, he took him. They went
down.
Did
he get him down?
They went down, but Oleinik basically put himself in a situation to be taken down and close distance, and basically gave himself up, similar to pulling guard, except he just walked right into Albini and let him take him down, and then locked up the Ezekiel, and then that was it. someone's got to get into Hunt's ears and say, no matter what you do not follow this guy to the ground under any circumstances.
Right.
That's gotta happen. I think the safest play on the card. I don't see either fighter having the gas tank to go 5 rounds. I believe the fight doesn't go the distance was something like minus 365 or 385. But if you did want to parlay that up with a few other things on the card, that wouldn't hurt with the way the lines are currently at. But my preferred play is Mark Hunt, although for 8,600, you're not going to be seeing the takedowns. You're not going to be seeing multiple knockdowns, I suspect. And Mark Hunt is not a volume striker.
Yeah, so again, if you're playing Mark Hunt, the only way he pays off probably is if he gets that knockout in the first round, maybe the second round. You get the 75 points, maybe a knockdown or something like that. Yeah. But if it gets into the third round, Mark Hunt's probably not paying off.
Right, and then you're playing with fire. Oleinik really he's locked stuff up standing. I mentioned he fought a Mirko Krokop, one of the most dangerous stand-up fighters the world has ever seen, and finished him. So to make somebody like that tap, especially outside of the UFC, when they're typically on performance-enhancing drugs, it says a lot, really, in my eyes. And the guy does not. The guy does not give up on himself, Oleinik. He was getting destroyed by Travis Brown, and he just wouldn't go away. He just wouldn't go away. But you guys remember the Mark Hunt Frank Mir fight, and I know Mir was kind of on his way out, but I see something similar. I see it ending in a similar fashion. Mark Hunt possesses life-changing power to take consciousness away from folks.
He does. And again, if you're going to play Mark Hunt, the only concern is if it gets into that third round, he's just not going to pay this off. But again, it's a GPP play. To me, this is not a cash play. And for the most part, I think Mike and I can agree that there are not many fights here that we're comfortable playing in cash. So you're going to have to take a chance with your cash lineup. Last week, I actually played 2 different cash lineups. I was just on I was on Andrade and Suarez in every one of my cash lineups, so I was able to basically cash with what I had. I was also on Aljamain Sterling, and I didn't put either one of the guys in the main event in the cash lineup, and I think a lot of people were on Till, so it saved me. But this week it's going to be tough to make a cash lineup because this is really more of a GPP card, in my opinion, with 8 fights favored to finish. So, Mike, you want to just tell everybody where they can find you and any last remaining thoughts on the card?
Sure. I agree with a lot of what you said. That we're going to have to hunt for options here that are fighters who we believe in, and that's really what it comes down to. You having conviction in your plays, and whether it's it could be a number of fighters on this card, but any specific card, you really want to do the extra homework. And even if it's just understanding that someone isn't going to tap as quickly as you suspect they would, that they're gonna go life and death to get you those extra points to win a GPP or put you over the top in a cash game. But you can find me at Mike's MMA Picks on Twitter, and I'm also at betmma.tips, I'm also at Cappertech, and I'm active on Twitter all the time. But really looking forward to this card, and then I'm licking my chops for the UFC 229 card. I cannot wait for that. We're a month out.
Yeah, we'll be live. I'll be shooting that that video live from Vegas. I'm leaving on Tuesday night, so maybe we'll do we really try to get this DK podcast out on Tuesday because DraftKings usually drops the lines on Tuesday, so it'd be great to be able to do that. But I just gotta hope my flight isn't delayed and I'll be out there. Yeah,
Another thing, this is a card where I would just beware that there might be, as far as logistics go with fighters cutting weight, etc. They might not have the same technology available to them, and I would just be wary of some of the judging that happens in this card as well.
And the technology they have available to them may be in the form of steroids, Mike. So we just gotta
that's true.
play it.
Has
play it for what
USADA
it's
tested
worth.
these guys? We'll see. We'll see.
All right, so signing off another Jersey Boys podcast. This is the UFC Fight Night 136, Hunt versus Oleinik.